might be able to get in there. You might.
Audio, but it's off. It's like, yeah, I just got in.
Server email accountings. I wouldn't know what the password is though.
Is there any way we can share a double link for Facebook because we already reached our capacity for the Facebook Live?
Are we missing Mr. Vasquez still?
Yes.
Mr. Steckschulte, perhaps you could reach out to make sure that President Vasquez is not having technical difficulties getting on, and then we can decide how we need to proceed in the next minute or two.
Yes, we've reached out to Bob. We're working on that.
Mr. Vasquez is having trouble getting in.
Also, one of our speakers is having trouble getting into because we are at capacity.
Well, this meeting shouldn't be at capacity, I don't think.
Okay,
Are we?
do we have everybody?
Yes. Are we on Facebook?
Are we where?
On Facebook at all?
I don't know. Mr. Sexualty, do you know if they're on Facebook?
We're working on that, Mr. Vasquez.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Vasquez, since we're having, we're only allotted so many folks on this board meeting, and we want to make sure that most of the community is able to view this, can we hold off for another 5 minutes to make sure that we have, that community has access?
We sure can. Let's wait. Let's see, make sure we get everybody and things straightened out so we have maximum participation.
Thank you.
I want to make sure all of our staff can get on as well. Does anyone have a connection to Facebook so that we'll know when we're on Facebook?
WTOL is live streaming it on Facebook.
So we're okay or what?
Yes, the only issue we have right now is we have one speaker that has not been able, or two speakers that have not been able to get on.
Okay, well, we got to get them on.
Actually, I would suggest that we proceed and give our apologies. I don't think we anticipated using up our attendee links to this, and had we've been able to let people know that they can watch this on Facebook and didn't have to use up an attendee link to join us. Perhaps some who aren't expecting to be speakers would be willing to give up their spots and watch us live, because that's our licensing limit for people to be actually on the call is 100 people. And we have a few people that were previously designated as needing to address the board. And so unless we can come up with 3 or 4 more spots, I think we're just going to have to make our apologies to those presenters.
You mean to the community presenters?
The community presenters are the ones that aren't able to get on because we've already filled our 100 spots, right, for people joining us on this link. But since we are indeed being streamed live, perhaps some people don't need to be using an attendee spot. They could watch us on the live stream and give a couple of spots up, or we'll just have to make our apologies to those speakers who didn't make it in as an attendee, and ask them if they'd like to speak at a future board meeting.
Where are we at, Mr. Steckschulte, with solving this issue? And do we have people that we can maybe staff that are not involved in any presentation to be able to step off? But then I don't know how the other people, our speakers, step on as quickly to fill those spots. Does anyone know how that works?
We're identifying the individuals so that we can get them on. We're going to move we're going to move staff so that we can get them on. We're just working through that situation right now.
All right, I'm gonna give you a few more minutes, but we're gonna have to get going here.
Can we proceed, please?
I agree, we should proceed.
My only concern is we have a lot of families that is trying to make sure and understand what's going on. And if we
Yeah.
do that, then we're only causing more chaos.
Ms. Barnes, it is live streaming on WTOL right now. So that's an option on WTOL's Facebook page. That I would love to have seen it on our own page, but it apparently is not up yet.
So could that be communicated on as well so they'll know to go to WTOL to watch?
I'll bet we could host a watch party on our page and link to the WTOL page if our social media gurus wanted to go that route.
Hold on, please. Okay, it appears as if we are not able to get the speakers on. So we're gonna have to skip that part of the board meeting and make sure that they get on at the next board meeting and give them a chance to speak. So with that, I want to call the board meeting of Toledo Public Schools to order. And Mr. Steckschulte, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Barnes,
Present.
Mrs. Eichenberg,
Here.
Mrs. Gherkin,
Here.
Mrs. Barwig,
Present.
Mr. Vasquez.
Here. Okay, next on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Do you have a flag there, Mr. Steckschulte?
Yeah, I'm pulling it up.
Do you have it there, or should we just?
Oh, I gotta share my screen 1 second. Can you see?
All right. So let's recite the Pledge of Allegiance for those who would like to do that. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Mr. Schulte. Next, Dr. Durant, would you like to cite the mission and vision for us?
Toledo Public Schools' mission is to produce competitive college career-ready graduates through a rigorous curriculum across all grade levels, by implementing Ohio new learning standard with fidelity. Our vision statement is to strive to be an integrated school district whose graduates are college and career-ready. Thank you.
Thank you. And just to let you know, you have an echo coming through your microphone somehow.
Yeah, that's not Dr. Durant's echo. It's somebody else who hasn't muted their mic's echo. So you have to remember to mute the mic every time. And our hosts might be able to help us with that by being quick to remute people as soon as they have completed their remarks.
Okay. At this time, I think we're all aware already of the tragedy that has happened in our city, but we'd like to take a moment of silence to honor Officer Anthony Dia. So if you all just join me for just a moment of silence in his honor. Thank you. Section 2 is Dr. Durant's section for presentations.
I would turn this over to Ms. Mazur.
Is Ms. Mazur there?
Yes, she's going to present.
Okay.
Doesn't matter. But it
I'm sorry, Dr. Durant, are we, is something going on that I can't hear, or are we waiting?
She was reading through it, so she's
I didn't
gonna
hear it. Did
different
anybody
microphone.
else hear it?
No.
She doesn't have any audio, and from the host point of view, that should be obvious. You can see whether people have audio or not. This is becoming frustrating.
My apologies for that. I do have the resolution now, and Mr. Galt has hooked me up with his audio. And the resolution that's being brought forward is a resolution to rename the Sherman Elementary School Boys and Girls Club in honor of Mr. David Wermeister. And the resolution reads, whereas for decades, Toledo Public Schools and the Boys and Girls Clubs of Toledo, the clubs, have worked together to positively change and save lives of young people in our community, and their partnership is a model that has been replicated by other Boys and Girls Clubs across the country. And whereas Mr. David Wermeister has been involved with the clubs since he was a member as a young boy. His 45-year professional career has been with the clubs, culminating as executive director for the past 18 years. And whereas it was under Mr. Wermeister's leadership that TPS received the 21st Century Grant to launch the first TPS/Boys and Girls Club at Sherman Elementary School, which led to 3 other clubs being opened within TPS schools, thus building a stronger relationship to serve our community's youth far into the future. And whereas, because of Mr. Wermeister's innovation, hard work, character, and commitment to the clubs, the Boys and Girl Clubs of America awarded Mr. Wermeister the 2018 Thomas G. Garth Character and Courage Award. This is the highest and most prestigious award a professional can receive in the Boys and Girls Club movement. Mr. Wermeister received the award at the BGCA's National Conference in San Diego on Friday, May 4th, 2018. And whereas the current name of the Boys and Girls Club at Sherman School is North Toledo Boys and Girls Club, and the Board of Education of the Toledo City School District desires to rename the Sherman School Boys and Girls Club as the David Wermeister Boys and Girls Club. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Section 1, the Board of Education of the Toledo City School District hereby finds that David Wermeister has positively affected countless TPS students throughout the last 45 years through the Boys and Girls Club of Toledo, and has worked tirelessly to forge an impactful relationship between TPS and the clubs. Section 2, the Board of Education of the Toledo City School District hereby renames the Sherman School Boys and Girls Club the David Wermeister Boys and Girls Club. Section 3, the board hereby finds and determines that all formal actions related to this adoption of this resolution were taken in open meetings of this board, and that all deliberations of this board and of its committees, which resulted in formal action, were taken in meetings open to the public in full compliance with applicable law. Section 4, this resolution shall be in full force and effect from and immediately after its adoption.
So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
So been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Vasquez, who made the motion?
Mr. Vasquez did.
I did.
All right, thank you.
Any discussion? Hearing none, treasurer, please call the roll.
Ms. Barnes,
Yes.
Mrs. Eichenberg,
Yes.
Mrs. Gherkin,
Yes.
Mrs. Varwig,
Yes.
Mr. Vasquez.
Yes. Thank you. Because of the issues that we have been having with our technology, we are going to skip section 3 with the for the community comments. We offer our apologies. It's a technological issue for us. We'll try to make sure it doesn't happen again. But we will hear from speakers at our next meeting. And it's our sincerest apologies that wasn't to happen, because we did have that scheduled. With that, I'm going to go on to section 4, which is the reopening.
President,
Yes.
if I may, if we could again make sure that people.
You're muted, Polly.
Taylor Gherkin, you are muted.
I'm sorry, I thought I did it, and then I think the host remuted me like I asked her to. So I think we need to make sure that we are indeed live stream and at least sharing the link on all of our social media to whoever is live streaming, because at this point, you know, we're going to get jammed up with the public having access to the meeting because they couldn't all get on the link that we published.
Yes, and I understand, Mrs. Gherkin, that we are on WTOL live streamed. Is that
We
my
are
understanding?
also, excuse me, everyone, this is Candace. We are also live on our own Facebook page.
Facebook.
We have been for several minutes now. And so it would be encouraged for anyone who can watch it live on Facebook to log off of the Zoom here and watch it through Facebook Live, which will
Perfect.
open up the opportunity for more people to sign in as attendees.
Okay, I just want to make sure it was live and that we were on safe ground to proceed with our business.
Thank you, Candace, for doing that.
Yes, and thank you, Mrs. Gherkin, for interjecting that we make sure that we are getting these things straightened out. Appreciate it very much. Okay, so section 4 is going to be a reopening presentation by our district staff. And the only thing that I ask of people is that you allow them to finish the entire presentation. So I hope you have something to write down your questions. And then you can ask them at the end of the presentation. And we just think that it's a pretty, I don't want to say lengthy, but it's got a lot of content to it. And we allow them, they have it scripted out so that it'll flow and that we allow the flow to happen. And then we ask our questions. But your questions are very important. And we want to make sure you have something to write down your questions. With that, Mr. Gant and Mr. Dr. Durant, it's all yours.
Yep. So again, just want to appreciate the board. Thank you to our administrative team, whether administrative or staff, teachers, administrators, as well as board members for all their input. And it has been well thought out. And so we're going to have various people who are going to speak on different components that are all comprised in what we do on a daily basis with students, whether it's in school or out of school. So we appreciate all the hard efforts and work. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Gann, who's going to identify some of the individuals who are going to be speaking today, along with myself, and we'll make sure to get through it, but making sure all the fine points are hit on. So Mr. Gant, you're up.
But before you start, I have on my screen some agenda thing and not anything else. Is that, does everybody else? There you go. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I just want to talk real quickly about what we've done. We've got several individuals that's going to speak about the reopening, our responsible reopening plan. We are going to start off with Ms. Cipriani doing a general health overview. After that, Dr. Durant will come in and make some comments, talk a little bit in the general sense about the reopening plan. Mr. Galt will talk about curriculum. Dr. Allen will talk about. Mr. Murphy is going to talk about how we're servicing our kids given the current circumstance. We'll talk a little bit about athletics with Ms. Myers. Mr. Sexualty will come back and have a discussion about the financial impact. We'll talk about how we're going to communicate to the public and our families. And then we're going to have Dr. Durant close it up. It's a lot of information, like Mr. Vasquez said. If you could reserve your questions until the end, that would be appreciated, because there's just a lot of information that might get answered during this presentation. So at this time, I want to turn it over to Ms. Cipriani.
Good afternoon. I'm Ann Cipriani. I've worked as a school nurse with the district since 2000, as the coordinator of health services since 2006, overseeing the student health services in the nursing department. I currently serve on several committees in the city and the county that influence public health decisions, which include all of our major healthcare partners and the Toledo Lucas County Health Department. Additionally, I've had the honor of being on the Big 8 Health and Safety Coalition that made recommendations to ODE and the governor's office on safely reopening schools. As the district carefully considers the recommendations to the board, I'd like to present some of the data that's been critical in making the best informed decisions for keeping our students, staff, and therefore our community safe. Schools are a microcosm of the greater community and do not operate in a vacuum. Therefore, all right, so guidelines. Our recommendations for safely operating schools as we had.
Excuse me, somebody is continuing to mute Miss Allen's microphone, and that is where we're hearing Miss Cipriani.
Good yet?
Correct.
I think also, if I may interject, technology-wise, if there's more than one device in the room where they're trying to present from Miss Allen's computer, that might be where we're getting the terrible feedback. So we need to also be mindful of that, because even when I could hear her, it was unintelligible.
All set to go? All right, we'll give this another go, everybody. Thank you for your patience. So we're going to give you some general ODE guidance for a safe reopening. There are some tenets that we all sort of agree on. For one, that a traditional school experience, as it's been known to be prior to the pandemic, will be a lot different looking this school year. When schools are operating with students in the building, they'll need to adhere to health and safety guidelines set forth by the Ohio Department of Health and our local health departments. We all know that those guidelines may change as circumstances change and will most likely lead to course corrections through our 2021 school year. Ohio's education system, therefore, when we make those decisions, needs to be nimble, flexible, and responsive to what's going on in our community with COVID-19. The CDC also provides some guidelines that they created an extensive document for guidance in reopening schools safely during COVID. Its principles and mitigation strategies start anywhere from low community transmission of COVID-19, which would include having schools fully open, all the way up through and including guidance for when there is sustained and uncontrolled transmission of COVID-19, which includes a virtual learning. So what does our local and state data have to say about what's going on about our COVID transmission at this point in time? You're currently looking at our state and local data. As most of you know, Governor DeWine, who is currently speaking right now as well, has implemented a public health advisory to help drive local decisions in safely opening communities and when to consider reversing those openings. The state data that you see before us has several different levels of public emergency. The red is where we are in Lucas County, and it's considered a level 3. There are some key indicators that we use when making our decisions as a district then based on this information. So the recommendations when you're in red are decrease in-person interactions with others outside your household, consider only necessary travel, avoid contact with anyone considered high risk, and high-risk individuals should take extra care to follow precautions, and finally limit attending gatherings of any number. So let's take a dive right down to our county. This is the Lucas County data as of 7/27. We have a total of 3,942 cases currently with 293 deaths. A key factor in public health in determining that this is a low transmission and under control is you'd like to see less than 50 cases of COVID-19 per 100,000 residents. The green are those zip codes that do have less than 50. The dark ones that you see, such as the reds, the navies, and purples, those are anywhere between 200 to 350 cases per resident. It turns out that 4 of our 6 high schools are in those dark zip codes. So there's some key considerations with this data that we use for reopening. First of all, 60% of our Ohioans are considered high risk based on CDC guidance. So although I don't have the statistics for our specific staff at TPS, it would be reasonable to assume that they fall in line with the 60% of Ohioans considered high risk. Then when we look at Toledo Public Schools ourselves, there are several social determinants of health and other COVID-19 high risk factors that are very evident in our own TPS students. First of all, the zip codes that I just mentioned that had the highest rates of COVID in our county. Also, we have more than 5,400 students in grades K to 12 with a chronic health condition such as diabetes and asthma. 67% of our students are of racial and ethnic minority. A significant number of those students also live in the multi-generational homes or being raised by their grandparents. And 85.7% of our students are economically disadvantaged. Additionally, we all struggle with the fact that there is healthcare access to testing and expedient test results. So you want to go back one more for me, please? I'm just kind of wrap it up. So given the continued presence of COVID-19 and health and safety precautions must be paramount for us. While the guidelines prescribed for reopening serve to protect our children, they are additionally significant for protecting the adults in schools, at their homes, and in their communities. The reopening recommendations reflect and align directly with community spread of COVID-19 as reported by our local health officials. Therefore, if schools can't abide by those guidelines provided by our health department, the CDC, and ODE, they should consider remaining closed in-person instruction until an appropriate plan can be developed and implemented, or until we have community control of COVID-19 and it is slowed considerably. So the district has worked tirelessly all summer to come up with some detailed health and safety considerations. And I'd just like to address 3 of those safety measures that are frequently brought up for reopening schools, which includes the face coverings. I'll talk shortly about daily health assessments, and then overall general cleaning operations. So in general, we're asked, why are we wearing face coverings? If there's anything that has helped to slow the spread of COVID-19, face coverings have been shown by experts as to be a very powerful tool along with social distancing and hand hygiene. The face coverings help minimize the spread of respiratory respiratory droplets from coughing, sneezing, and talking. And again, the importance of wearing the face mask is that we wear it on our chin, our nose, and our mouth. It's covering it. Go ahead, please. I do want to say that there are a lot of details that have been worked out on our face coverings, and board members, you do have those in all of the appendices in the back. I'd like to turn this back over to Mr. Gant right now, who's going to talk about some general guidelines for staff and wearing the face masks.
Yeah, and before I do that, I want to make sure that everyone understands that no matter what we're doing and what we're putting in our plan, we have to ensure that we're being flexible in our process. Obviously, the governor and the state and actually nationally, things have changed constantly. So there's really, until there's a cure, there's really no cure. And so in that instance, it's important for me to emphasize that as we kind of go through this plan and look at some of these safety measures, there is no absolute. As it relates to face covering, as you know, the governor has already said that all staff should be wearing face masks. So that will happen. All staff will be wearing face masks. As it relates to our population of our students, if we're in session, they will be required to wear face masks as well. It is highly recommended that in pre-kindergarten to 2, that they would be highly recommended to wear face covering as well. But we're very conscientious of the fact that learning has to happen. Sometimes that is conducive to the face mask that you see around, or we might need to get face shields in order so that we can make sure learning can happen. In addition to that, we also understand that certain individuals cannot potentially wear face masks. So we will be making sure that we have exceptions for those conditions or issues in which face masks may not be permissible. So I'm going to go ahead and give it back to Ms. Cipriani to talk about temperatures.
The only one I'd like to add on the face coverings is we're going to have anybody on transportation also will be required to wear face coverings because of the inability to social distance appropriately. So any child that's riding a bus will also be asked to wear a face covering. If families have trouble getting face masks for their students, the schools you can contact for some assistance. All right, go on to temperatures. So we are asking all of our parents to be our partners in health as we eventually get returned to school. And one of those important things with COVID-19 is to do daily health assessments of your students. We'll provide all of the information to our families for that, as well as our staff. And part of that is taking temperatures. We're asking that if your child's temperature is above 100.4, you keep them at home for at least 10 days, or until you've taken them to their healthcare provider and you provide a note that said it's okay for them to come back. A very common example is a student would have to stay home because they had a temperature of 101. You take them to the doctor, you find out they have an ear infection, they're on their antibiotics, and they're right back at school with us. If your family does not have thermometers, again, we would ask that you contact your school for some assistance. If for some reason we begin doing mass screenings of temperatures at school, or anytime we will be doing them going forward, we'll be using a touchless infrared thermometer to take your student's temperature. Please make sure that we have all your up-to-date information so that we need to contact you to pick up your student at school if they're ill, that we can contact you as soon as possible. And finally, I'd just like to talk about the last one on maintenance and operations, on how everything's going to keep clean. The high point here is that it's everyone's job to help reduce the spread of COVID-19 by participating in ongoing cleaning of high-touch surfaces at school. The district will provide the approved cleaners to all our buildings, and students will help with cleaning their desk if it's safe and developmentally appropriate for them. Hand sanitizing station will be prolific throughout our buildings, and there's an abundance of signage that will emphasize those 3 pillars of slowing and spreading COVID, which is hand hygiene, social distancing, and most important of all, wearing the face coverings. At this point in time, I would like to turn this over to our superintendent, Dr. Romulus Duran.
Thank you, Ms. Cipriani, as well as Mr. Gant. appreciate, in essence, your presentation, Mr. Cipriani, who oversees our health and wellness throughout our students and even some senses our staff. There's a true appreciation, particularly when you're looking at 5,400 students who are ultimately in the fragile and critical area when it comes to the COVID-19, which is a huge number, and in many school districts, it's the size of what they have as total bodies and students. So we are very conscious of those students that are diabetics, as well as our asthmatics, as well as those at high blood pressure, that we provide options that are safest for them. So what we're going to do is, as you saw with the state has created a color system as a public health advisory system to be able to assess, in essence, where your county is, as well as the state as a whole. You see have yellow, orange, red, and purple that speak to the threat level of the spread of the coronavirus. Well, within TPS, we have generated our own color system. We have green, we have yellow, and we have red. And what I would do is speak to the color system as we go through, and then make a recommendation, in essence, of board approval that the cabinet leaders, as well as teachers and others, have gotten together to have conversations about what's the best way to open up our school district, but at the same time, do it in the most safest manner in regard to our students, as well as our staff, in essence of making sure that all entities are safe in the most conducive environment for learning. So before getting to the color system, despite whatever color it may be, there is the Virtual Academy. So whether we're in a green or a yellow or red phase within the district, Virtual Academy is an entity outside on its own, which we have 3,200 families enrolled and having their kids take part in the Virtual Academy. Understand the Virtual Academy is a commitment of a semester. We have moved back the sign-up date to August 8th. In essence, if any parent who wants to sign up can do so, but there's a commitment of a semester. But again, whatever color we're on, these individuals who are part of the Virtual Academy will stay within their virtual learning, which is the remote setting within their own home environment. So we appreciate that, but you can go on to tps.org, and that's where you can register to get in and sign up for the Virtual Academy to receive a Chromebook, hotspot, as well as be put on a teacher's list that you will now have a face teacher who you'll be assigned to throughout the week, learning each and every day. So again, that commitment is a semester. Students will have 4 hours each day in front of a certified licensed teacher, carrying them through the curriculum and making sure that they're progressing towards the academic standards at their particular grade level. So if we move on to the first color, the first color is obviously the easiest one, is the green. Green, what green means, if a district is in an indicator green, this speaks to that at the end of the day, all students are coming 5 days a week. Obviously, we'll continue with the cleanliness and all the things that we should do just naturally. In essence, we provide and secure, in essence, of just germs, period. But in this specific coronavirus, is that the green setting is a 5-day week, full students moving forward, just as you would see in a traditional year with certain measures happening with cleanliness and other things potentially, depending on what the state of the health risk in the state of Ohio or in Lucas County. So again, green is kind of the easiest. No matter what color we're in, we could be in yellow. The minute that we say that we're going to a green light indicator, that means all students will attend school, normal hours, 5 days a week. Again, we will communicate that to you, whether it's through our social media, phone call, as well as letters to the home to each and every parent. So again, that is the color green. As we move into the yellow status, the yellow is the most complex out of all of them because it takes some complicity and understanding that there's students in different settings on different days, and then making sure that we provide for some sense of eating and all those other things that we had to take into account. So again, the yellow is what they consider a hybrid model. They're an A group and a B group. What that means is there are 20 students in a classroom. You are breaking that classroom into half, 10 and 10, 10 that are going on A days, 10 who are attending B days at the school in front of a teacher. So again, if your child is on an A day, they will attend school Monday and Thursday in front of a teacher throughout a normal traditional day within a half enrolled classroom. If your child is on a B in the B group, they will attend Tuesday and Friday in front of an instructor within the school setting throughout the week. But at the same time, Wednesday, all students will be remote virtual on Google Classroom. So students will be 2 days personally face-to-face within that week, and they will spend 1 day with the entire classroom, which is the remote Wednesday virtual. So again, what this allows us to do, because we have had questions and why not make it consecutive, Monday and Tuesday, Thursday and Friday, by doing it this way, we're able to feed all students efficiently, because that child who's on an A group Monday and Thursday, we're able to send them home for Tuesday and Wednesday with food. In the same way with those who attend Tuesday and Friday, we send them home Wednesday and Thursday with food. So this allows us the ability to feed them over a course of 2 days. At the same time, only 1 day goes where the child is not in front of an instructor, whether it's remote or what's in person. And that's the reason why we chose, in essence, the A and B group, and on the days that we chose them to for their setting. But knowing in the hybrid, again, just as Mr. Gant stated, all staff will be required to wear face masks. At the same time, if your child is in K through 2, it will be encouraged. Those from 3 to 12, again, required in essence of wearing a face mask. So again, we want to make sure that we continue to heighten the essence of safety first. At the same time, if they're in a hybrid model, students will continue to see art, continue to receive music, as well as physical education on a tri-semester basis. You will see this mostly in the high schools, where they will spend an entire semester in art, an entire semester in music, and an entire semester in physical education, ultimately making sure that we give them a well-rounded education of not only their common cores, but more importantly, all the essentials of the art and music and physical education that really rounds up an education, but more importantly, rounds up the well-development of a child. So again, that is the hybrid model, which is a color light status yellow, which is taking precaution. And in many cases, depending on where you're at as a state rating, gives you a good sense of when you could bring kids in person, but at the same time, fully or half time based on green and yellow. So if we move on to the next color, the next color is the red status. Understanding the red status can happen at any time. Understand that at any particular time, if we're in a hybrid model, if we're in green and all students are here, there could be an outbreak or a spike within one school. That school may have to completely go on a red status indicator. What that means is, if you're in a hybrid model, you're gonna follow your Wednesday schedule, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. You're gonna do it 5 days a week in front of a teacher on Google Classroom, Google Meet, remotely, during the case that we have to go to a red. We may have to go red for an entire district or an entire learning community in certain portions of town based on the spike that may happen within those areas. Our ability to respond to it is knowing that throughout the week of a hybrid model, you're already doing a Wednesday schedule remotely. What we do is say, take Wednesday and make it Monday through Friday in the event that we have to close schools down or an individual school. That ultimately allows us the ability of, one, already doing this throughout the year on Wednesday, but two, knowing this is going to be a Monday through Friday. At the same time, while we're in red, again, the Virtual Academy is just going to operate as they normally do. If we're in yellow, Virtual Academy is going to operate as we normally do, in the same way as we're in green, because again, I want to remind you, Virtual Academy is a separate entity. They are operating remotely Monday through Friday for a full semester of commitment. But then after that may choose to join into a hybrid model, which is A and B group setting. So with that said, that gives us a good sense of knowing what green light is, yellow light is, and red light, which those lights can change throughout the year. If you saw the state identification of a health advisory, Lucas County once was in orange. Within the last week and a half, we have now moved ourselves in the heat of red, ultimately seeing a spike within the area of not only confirmation in some sense as well as in deaths and fatalities. So again, that is the red light, yellow light, and green light. Next is going to be our district recommendation. So again, just as I spoke a week and a half ago, as well as previously, when we were in orange status, that brought about some conversation about potentially doing a hybrid model. But we have progressed in a much more higher risk, which is red. And that higher risk means there's a higher potentiality of spread within the schools, as well as exterior and certain activities. Well, within that, we have decided to make a recommendation to our board that we are going to start the school year off at a red status. At the same time, move the school year back until after Labor Day. Most school districts across the country already start after Labor Day. somewhat in the Midwest. Many of us start prior to that. Well, we've decided the governor has given autonomy to every school district to choose to do. If you choose to start in August, or if you choose to do it after Labor Day, we said, let's give this virus time for us to be able to evaluate Lucas County as well as the state of Ohio. So students will be required to start school on a delayed start, meaning September 8th, which is after the holiday. Now, staff will be required at their normal time. But the main thing, what we're doing is saying, we're going to start the year off on remote, allow ourselves to assess what goes on in this local community, use that data to decide on what's the best way to start school off, meaning we're not going to pilot our own students and staff to see how it should happen. We're going to observe what happens in other areas who are coming full-time, who are coming half-time. That gives us data to be able to decide what is the best way to reopen, because we don't want to make the mistakes that states have made who have reopened too early, now are finding themselves in the heat of an epicenter. And at the end of the day, we don't want to contribute to already a red status that the Lucas County already has. So this gives us the best position to start the year off remotely, assess what's going on in other areas that are attending full-time as well as half-time, use that data to be able to decide what is the best way to bring education to the forefront of two schools. In some cases, it may say you stay in red. In other scenarios, it'll say we are now safe in a position that through certain interventions happening at the building level, we can be successful to be able to do a hybrid model and maintain and be able to control any outbreaks or spikes within schools or within learning communities that ultimately not only keeps our students safe, but more important, we as a district, as an employer, have an obligation to our staff to make sure that they're safe just as well. And so through this allows us, and that's just the best opportunity to observe the virus. Right now, there is no data out there that says what it looks like in schools here in Ohio, schools here in Lucas County. We could speak about other foreign countries, but at the end of the day, we need to speak about the data that exists here in essence of how the spread happens here. That ultimately makes the best sense to strategically use data to drive our reopening within the Toledo Public Schools. In the event, based on opening up in red, and we choose not to launch a yellow status, athletics will be postponed to October 1st. So again, our athletic will be postponed to October 1st. We will reevaluate at that time. We could decide on different outlook, and that's of bringing students back. We can decide on a different outlook of bringing sports back in a way that is efficient and being safe, at the same time, being able to allow students to engage in those activities that they have prepared for through the off seasons. And one of the things is at the end of the day, if sports does not happen in the fall and we're not able to bring them back in October, we will still have them. One of the best case scenarios is we will relaunch them potentially in the spring, that ultimately they'll be able to do those things. One of the best things that we have the advantage of in the City League is that we control our own team schedules. We will have a 10-game schedule as well as being able to have a championship to be able to do so based on having the ability to control our own schedule as well as our own playing season. So again, one of the other things that we've heard a lot on social media as well as our parents in regards to dress code. We will modify the dress code for the 2020 and 21 school year only coming, and then revisit it at the end of the year. This remodification will be able to align itself to what the dress code is currently with the high schools. So right now, the policy that we have for high school will now become the policy for the dress code for elementary for the 2020-2021 school year, this coming school year, which ultimately alleviates parents of the financial burdens that some of you are struggling with and not having to buy uniforms, at the same time buy other setting clothing that you do not allow kids to wear uniforms outside of the school day. So having that really alleviates our parents and give them the ability, the flexibility of knowing that they don't have that overhanging on their heads, but at the same time, in the event that we do come back, the dress code will follow accordingly to our high school dress code, which we will get that information out to you, which again is on tps.org on our webpage. So with that said, we appreciate the team pulling together, because what we're going to do from this point on in this presentation is Mr. Galt is going to speak to all the details of the curriculum. At the same time, Mr. Murphy is going to speak to wraparound services that need to be given to students to be successful. And at the same time, Dr. Allen is going to speak about special education, early childhood, all those things that lead to being successful in education. So with that said, we're going to turn this over to Mr. Galt, who is the transformational leader of curriculum and instruction.
Thank you, Dr. Durant. And as Dr. Durant stated, the recommendation is for red, but I do quickly want to go through the various phases. The first phase, phase one, we'll call green light. I won't spend a lot of time on this because this is how we, the majority of people that are in this room and on this call, attended school. That's 5 days a week with recommendations that we would follow from the Lucas County Health Department, CDC, and governor. So we're going to move on then to phase two, which we will call yellow light, known as the hybrid plan. Dr. Durant stated that we'd be splitting students into two groups, the A group being on Monday and Thursday, the B group being on Tuesday and Friday. He referenced the fact that there was a reason behind this. I know there was a lot of questions. Why wouldn't we send students consecutive? Why wouldn't we send them Monday and Tuesday and then Thursday and Friday? Well, there's a couple of answers for that. Number one, the meal service, being able to send students home with meals until we see them physically next. If we're looking at 3 days worth of meal services, they are taking home medium-sized boxes of breakfast and lunch. Many of our students are walkers. In our younger population, we thought that could be a safety risk. Second of all, we wanted to see your kids as quickly and as possible. We did not want 3 days in between physically seeing students. So we know that this creates some unique challenges in regards to cleaning, and we will have our full staff on board and taking those precautions to ensure that both the A and the B group are safe. In addition to the A, B, and splitting students in half to promote social distancing, there will be gifted services in a phase two. What will happen is the students will go to their individual building. At that point, then they will log on with their gifted teacher or their educator to have their services. They'll also do that in terms of remote. Our early high school options will be limited in a phase two yellow light. Traditionally, students have the opportunity to take music, general art, and other courses at their high schools as 7th and 8th graders. Those will be suspended during a phase two yellow light. What will be available will be those core courses for those students that are subject accelerated and on a written acceleration plan. That being said, the arts are important as they provide a well-rounded individual. So our elementaries will continue with that. We'll be developing a new model. Instead of having art, music, and phys ed all in the course of 1 week. In a 2-day attendance, we will move to a trimester. Students will have 1/3 of the year, they will take art. The next third of the year will be music. And the final will be phys ed or vice versa. But every student will have the ability to have on every day of physically attending on a yellow light, the ability to take art, music, and PE during the course of the year. Parents will be letting you know about your AB, where your students are. And it's important to note that we've tried to keep families together. So for example, when we've developed an AB schedule, we put all members of a family either on A or either on B. We'll be distributing that out to you before August the 10th. And then August the 10th to the 19th, we're going to allow you an opportunity to request that to be changed if for some reason it would need to be. We would have until the 24th to finalize that, but it's important to note that not all requests can be fulfilled. If everyone wants to be on an A group and no one wants to be in a B group, we obviously will not be able to social distance. So we'll do our best around your requests, but understand that we may not be able to fulfill all of those. And then there's questions if we're in phase two or a yellow light. What about those weeks that we have Monday holidays? For example, Martin Luther King, President's Day, etc. But we don't want to lose a day in instruction. So on those weeks where we have a holiday, a scheduled holiday, we'll still have it. However, we will change our attendance. For those in the B group, you're planning on going to school on Tuesday and Friday. You'll continue to do that. On weeks where there are holidays, our A group, you're missing Monday because of the holiday. So we are going to have you come Wednesday and Thursday, and there will be no virtual attendance that week. So let's take a look at what phase three or red light, and this is what the recommendation is to begin the school year. Once again, it'd be online instruction with 100% remote attendance, and no one is physically attending within our buildings. Our staff will report as normal in terms to their building as scheduled. And your students will begin on September the 8th, as Dr. Durant stated. They will have a licensed certified teacher that will be their home teacher that they will be learning remotely from. We'll begin device distribution August 24th through September 4th, as we've delayed the start of school to do this. We'll be asking parents and families to come pick up devices, have an orientation, fill out all necessary forms, learn how the devices work, learn all necessary passwords, and to meet your instructors for the year. Now, what will a red light look like for students? Students, you should expect to be online up to, and the key word there is up to, 4 hours each day with focused instructions by your licensed certified staff members. This does not include time that you're going to have to spend completing assignments, projects, or other additional tapings that may be required. And you'll utilize the Google platform in order to receive your instruction. That's Google Meets, it's Google Hangout, and of course, Google Classroom. High schools, on Mondays and Thursdays, you will have designated times where periods 1, 2, 3, and 4 will occur. On Tuesdays and Fridays, periods 5, 6, and 7 will occur. And what's important to note that even though you may not have live attendance on an off day, there will still be tapings and other recordings as well as work that you're going to be responsible for. And then on Wednesdays, we're going to be doing small group instructions where your instructor will be working with small groups to either provide intervention or additional materials as enrichment to ensure that learning is continuing. Another thing to note is that all TPS grading, reporting, and attendance policies will be followed. That means students, you will be required to do work, you will be graded on that work, and you will earn the grades that you deserve. The next thing that I want to talk about is the Virtual Academy. And it's important to notice the two different distinctions between a remote, which is red light, and Virtual Academy. As Dr. Durant stated, in red light, there's the possibility that we could move from yellow to green at any time. If you're in the Virtual Academy, you will stay learning remote for the entire semester up through December. And at that point then, we'll assess how things are going, and you may have the ability to continue for semester 2. You will have a licensed certified staff member that will be your instructor, and they will be providing curriculum to you through the use of technology. You should expect to once again be online up to 4 hours a day, and that does not include your projects and other work that you would have to do. Our high school schedule will be Monday and Thursday, periods 1, 2, 3, 4, Tuesday and Friday, 5, 6, 7, with Wednesdays to be office hours and small group instruction. Other details that you should know about. Our class sizes in the Virtual Academy for grades K to 3 will be 30 to 1. Grades 4 to 12 will be 35 to 1. That might mean at certain times all 30 students are in terms of utilizing technology to receive instruction, or they might be utilizing and breaking them down into smaller groups. We'll be providing Chrome devices that have cameras as well as microphones, and we will have Wi-Fi hotspots available for our families that need that. In terms of our curriculum, we'll have all board adopted curriculum as well as teacher supplemental curriculum. We'll be utilizing the iReady platform for reading and math in elementary and the Alex platform math in terms of within high school. A couple other things around the Virtual Academy. We've had over 3,000 students that have now signed up for this. If you're in the Virtual Academy and athletics are continuing or happening within the district, you'll have the ability to do that. You'll also have the ability to be in extracurricular activities available for College Credit Plus courses, CCP, where you can earn college credit while in high school, and you'll have the ability to pick up meal service from TPS. It's important to note once again that if you're signing up for the Virtual Academy, you're doing it for the entire semester. If you're a student with disabilities, you can also get in the online academy. We will be providing related services such as speech, occupational therapy, physical therapy remotely, and we will work with you around what those times look like. We'll begin device distribution and orientation August 24th through September 4th. That'll also tell you what time you will be signing on for your various courses. And you can continue to enroll in the Virtual Academy at tps.org up and through August the 8th, 2020. At this time, we're going to talk about our special populations with Dr. Amy Allen.
Good afternoon, everybody. I would like to spend a few minutes talking about and addressing many of the questions that have come up regarding our special education students, as well as our early childhood students. So we'll start with special education. For our students with disabilities, the ramifications of yellow and red are significant. And so we need to think long and hard and plan intentionally for how we will do that. You can see here that if we are on green light, there's really not a lot to share because we know how to do that. It will be school as usual with following CDC and governor recommendations. If we are in a yellow light, our students with disabilities will also attend on the AB schedule that Mr. Galt described. And it's important to note that they will also be supported remotely on the other 3 days when they are not in session. It is possible that some students may attend 4 days per week if they are a student with a disability. That is dependent upon the disability, dependent upon IEP team recommendations. And the primary reason for that is that oftentimes special education classes are smaller in number, and we would be able to socially distance those students without having to split the class into two. If you are a parent of a student with a disability, you can expect to be contacted by your child's special education teacher for schedule development and specifics about when to log in and what that would look like. And as Mr. Galt said earlier, all services, including related therapies, will be provided through a blend of face-to-face and remote connections. If we are operating in red light, which is the recommendation that Dr. Durant made a few minutes ago, all students will receive all services and therapies through the remote connections. Again, families will be contacted by the special education teacher and relevant support staff for schedule development. If your student with disabilities needs some adaptive materials that are specific to his or her learning needs, those materials will be delivered to your home in order to make sure your student can access the curriculum. Daily attendance will be required for all students, including students with disabilities, and the amount of time that is spent in a remote class will be up to 4 hours, but will also be determined by teacher and therapists and parent input to make sure that we are doing what is best for individual students. The class size for special education will be in line with the state guidelines for numbers of students that teachers can teach at any given time. Moving to early childhood, which is another area that poses some significant challenges when going to an online model. We again have green light, which we know how to do. We again have yellow light with the A-B schedule that has been referenced. With our younger students, it's important for families to know that we will need you to assist in logging students into the remote classroom. Students will play games in an online preschool learning program. They will spend some time virtually with teachers, and they will receive a kit of materials needed in order to complete learning activities at home. When we are in red, which is how we will begin, all students will receive instruction through remote connections. Again, teachers will contact families for scheduling. We will need families to assist logging students into the remote classroom daily. Students will spend approximately 1 hour per day. Please note that will not likely be 1 hour all at the same time. We know attention spans are short and we want to maintain best practices as best we can. Activities will include some socialization time, some sharing, story time, math activities. They will also play games on an online platform that we will be providing. And again, receive a kit of materials needed to complete learning activities at home. The class size for our red light at this time will remain at 17 as a maximum number of students, but please note that all 17 students will not be logging in at the same time. They will be addressed in small groups in schedules developed by the teachers. So we look forward to seeing your students in the fall, and I am going to turn this over to Mr. Brian Murphy, who's going to talk about the supports that we are going to be providing to make sure that the needs of the whole child are met.
Good afternoon, board. Dr. Durant. I'd like to spend the next few minutes just talking about whether we operate in a red status or yellow status, the steps that the district is taking to continue to serve the whole child. So the goal is to talk through how the district will support the whole child. And regardless of the situation that we're in, we want to do three things. One, we want TPS partners and the partner collaboration process that began a few weeks ago to continue. Two, we want TPS, we want to explain how TPS is going to put internal and external supports into supporting students and families and the needs that we identify. And then three, we're going to explain how TPS is going to work with partners to provide support options throughout the community, especially in high needs areas. We know that supporting the whole child is much more than just academic instruction. We know that we as a district must maximize the opportunity for each child and every child through the coordination of collaboration in partnership with not just the child, but with the family, with the school, with community, district, and city. It's truly a collaborative effort that all parties have to come together to work in a collaborative nature to provide these supports. In Toledo Public Schools, we have 120 dedicated community support partners that work tirelessly every day with the district and the students and the families that we serve. Some of those examples are the following: United Way, Lucas County Job and Family Services, Tabernacle Church, YMCA, RFS Charitable, Tutor Smart, the local universities, in addition to Center of Hope, Boys and Girls Club, and several others. Having a district that has 23,000 students, 54 schools across this community, it truly takes an operation of organization of all of these different supports. The next few slides, I want to talk a little bit about that partner collaboration planning sessions, those sessions that we've been having and will continue to have. I want to talk about the district student family support team of district leaders that we have put together that will be meeting weekly to focus in on supporting the needs of children and families. I also want to talk a little bit about the school-based teams that are going to happen, that are meeting daily and will be working in the community daily. And through that, we're going to show that effective facilitation and coordination and effective outreach is actually happening. So for the last several weeks, collaborative planning sessions have been happening with 30 of the most impactful district partners. Meetings have been bi-weekly to monthly. They've been categorized by 4 different areas. 1, behavioral and mental health supports to our students and families. Academic supports that are after school hours, operating in a yellow or a green. Academic supports in school, and then college and career readiness. Through our partners, we know that for them to be successful, for students that are in their programs, we have to meet the needs of our partners. Through this process, we've identified some of the urgent priorities and other priorities as well. Listed are some of the urgent priorities. Access to TPS approved learning platforms. We're going to be working hard to ensure our partners improve effectiveness of the educational support by having that access. We're going to ensure that we have data sharing with data from the district, so we can share the data with our partners to better engage our students, and it's effective. We're going to ensure that community partners' hours of operations are communicated openly and transparently to our community so parents know and have a good understanding of what options are out there for them. Some of the other priorities: teacher and administrator partner collaboration, so we can have targeted and individualized instruction. Student recruitment of partner programs. Again, we have to make sure that we communicate all the different programs in our community that's offered to our families. And then finally, how do we best engage students? Is it all through a virtual model? Is it through in-person? Is it through a blended model for our families? This slide signifies, based on ongoing communication with our community partners, our families, our students, it shows some of the most urgent needs of our families, especially during this difficult time. Physical, medical treatment, food and food distribution is important, childcare, technology assistance, academic and homework assistance, behavioral mental health support, school attendance, and then family and social health. I can assure you that TPS and our community partners are working each and every day to meet the needs of our students and the families that are experiencing these needs. Also, the district has designed a district student family support team that is meeting weekly. Listed there is an example of some of the titles of the people that's on that committee to show the focus in and the commitment to the support of our kids, especially during a time of red or yellow. It's going to be important for this team, who is tasked with developing and maintaining a list of district resources for urgent needs of students and families. Each district team member will be working with school-based teams that will allow the district and community partners to align resources for the most needed areas in our community. Also listed there are some other duties that the district team will be responsible for. Next, you'll see a list of our school team. Every one of our 54 schools across the district will have a school team that will be meeting each and every day. They will be more than 20, 25 individuals on those teams that will be working daily in the community, making individual contact with all of our kids and all of our families to assess what needs are there. And they will be working to meet those needs of those families. Some of the duties of that team are included in the bullets below there as well. And then finally, a very important option that's developing is that the district has several community partners that continue to reach out to the district. And they continue to develop programs where they're in the process of developing programs that are on site in their location for options for parents who send their children if we're operating in a red status. A couple of those examples are the following. RFS Charitable, they're offering on-site student support for areas of need in the following areas: behavioral health, educational supports, technology assistance, food distribution, and family social health. They have multiple locations around the city that will be communicating. They'll be servicing 80 to 100 kids a day, and there'll be an AM and PM session. Another good community resource is Western Partners of Ohio. They will be providing physical health treatment for our students and families that's medical, behavioral health, and family social health, including family social health. There's 3 locations that have health centers that provide these services in the district. In addition to, we will be having telehealth equipment staged in our elementary schools, which will also provide additional options for parents and our students. And the last slide is just a map that shows community partner hubs of support. It's very important at Toledo Public Schools and our partners that we provide services, an array of services based on the needs of our students and community in the highest needs areas. We will be tracking all of those resources in our community to ensure that they're aligned to best benefit our students and community. At this time, I'd like to turn things over to Mr. Gant, Chief of Staff.
Yeah, I just want to make a quick comment on Mr. Murphy's presentation. Mr. Murphy and other administrators, Mr. Galt and myself, we have been really having discussions with our various labor groups as well about services and what they look like. So I want to make sure that the board and the community is aware of is that services will be delivered differently to you. And I do mean to you. Our objective is to make sure that we are getting to our individual families and students to make sure during this time that we are providing the best service possible. And I cannot thank the labor organizations enough in working with us on this. It's still going to be developed. We're going to work with them. We're going to collaborate with them in how this looks, but services will be delivered a little bit differently, as you can imagine. Ms. Myers?
Thank you, Mr. Gant. Board members and other guests, I'm Linda Myers, Transformational Leader of Community Engagement, and I have the information for athletics, our recommendations. In a red light status, that is when all classes are being held remotely, we will cancel all practices, all workouts, all meetings, all of the meetings with teams, coaches, and parents, and all games. All of those would be suspended. If the district decides that we can go to a yellow light, and when TPS determines it is safe to go to that yellow light, we would then work to follow Ohio Athletic Association guidelines and rules, along with the health department rules, to provide and design some city league schedules so that we can reopen athletics, but only if and when it is deemed safe enough to be able to do that. Now, I would like to turn it over to Mr. Ryan Steckschulte for the financial impact.
Next slide. So here are the costs, some estimated and some actual as of today. Right now, we're looking at about 15.5 million additional cost to the district. The business affairs, which would be more of your protective equipment, face mask, plexiglass, and other items needed within the buildings to make those safe. Those would fall underneath the business affairs. The custodial maintenance, that would be all of our cleaning supplies, new cleaning equipment to help with that process, additional staffing / overtime that we will need to be using to cover the additional cleanings that we will have to be doing. And more, and also would include your hand sanitizer. The education line item, the majority of that is for the virtual school that we are implementing this year. And then also included in that will be the additional educational supplies that will be necessary once we come back to in-person learning. Under the technology, this is the addition of purchasing 13,500 Chromebooks. Also adding into that is the hotspots so that all families have internet access and can remote learn. Transportation, that would be the addition of getting some more buses to help with transporting the students in a safe manner, and also the additional bus drivers that would be needed for that. Under the recommendations for state and federal funds, the CARES Act funding that we are receiving, what we're doing with that is trying to relieve the stress on the general fund where possible. The purpose of that is to protect our programming and our staffing. We currently are working with the ODE to get as much flexibility as we possibly can on how we are spending our federal money. And next up is Mr. Gant.
Just a couple of other considerations that we just like to talk real quickly about. The biggest one is a system called Raptor, which is our visitor management system. What is important for our visitors to know is that they're going to need their ID in order to enter the buildings starting in the school year. When that happens, it'll do a couple things for us. One, obviously, there's some safety and security considerations in putting in the program like this. In addition to that, it will also help us with tracing of COVID. So if we ever have any tracing issues, we'll be able to notify the health department appropriately concerning that as well. So those are some of the things that we're doing. The last thing that I want to tell you about our visitor management system, that all visitors will be required to verify that they're symptom-free. So that would be a part of that as well. So that's an important consideration that I think our families need to understand and our visitors need to understand as they come to the district buildings. At this time, I want to go ahead and give it to Ms. Mazur, who's going to talk about communications.
Good afternoon, everyone. We have heard and seen a lot of different information here today, and I'm sure we have parents and community members and even staff who are listening and watching, wondering, did I get all the dates written down, things like that. We, through the communications department, will continue to keep students, staff, families, community members updated as best as possible with the dates, the trainings, anything that might come up that is related to the start of the 2021 school year. And how will we do that? We will use traditional media, which means we'll work with our local media partners and getting the word out and doing stories that folks will see then on the news and read in the Blade. We will also use social media. We have very active Facebook page, Twitter, and Instagram. We have update videos that have been done by key staff members that will be shared on a regular basis and will provide, again, key updates for our staff and our families. And then tps.org. That is always the best place to go, our website. And we are going through a redesign of the website. And along with that, we will also implement a new mass notification system, which will allow schools and district leaders to send updates to parents, and that can be via phone, text, email. The new program that we are using, School Messenger, is a very robust program and will serve us very well, especially during these trying times. One thing that I also want to talk about that Dr. Durant mentions quite frequently is there are rumors that get put out and things being talked about Toledo Public Schools that are not always necessarily true. So we are asking the community now, if you hear things or you read something that doesn't seem quite right or factual, please, 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 we're asking you, instead of spreading that information, that you come to the district for clarification. And that is, again, through our social media page, through our website. And we have also started a new email address that folks can use to ask questions. And the email just happens to be questions@tps.org. One other very important thing is contacting our staff. And staff do, especially at the building level, start returning to work on Monday, August 3rd. So if you have questions, please contact your principals or other administrators. Email and phone numbers are available on the website. And we ask as a reminder to all families, and this will be reiterated in the coming weeks, that it's so important that we have the most current contact information for you. So when updates and notifications need to get out, they are done so in a timely manner, and everyone is included in that. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Mazur. At this time, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Dr. Durant.
Again, want to thank the team, as well as board members, as well as all TPS employees who have came and taken part in this organization of pulling together a plan. Again, just to make sure some key highlights. Students will start after Labor Day, September 8th. Again, we postponed that to September 8th to begin to gauge and assess the risk factors. Staff will report as normal. We are opening up the school year in red, which is remote, but you still need to make sure you're identified in a hybrid class roster. So again, we will operate and start the year off in remote. We will assess the situation in various other schools who have opened up full or half to be able to determine how we will move forward. Again, Virtual Academy, which is separate, and it will continue. It's a semester commitment. Again, you have till August 8th to sign in. Right now, we have around 3,200 individuals signed up. Continue to sign in, and that does is commit for a semester. But again, that is virtual no matter what we do. If we're in yellow or green, you are still in the Virtual Academy. Parents, we wanted to get this out to you so you can make any necessary arrangement for your child in the essence of remote and in case that we do move into a hybrid model or move into green, we will always give you information, make you aware in essence of what the thoughts are and what we're planning to do as we begin to move forward. So with that said, we have some things in the appendix that you may use at your own resource to look through and use for yourself, as well as more information. But just as Ms. Major said, tps.org is the source and the primary source of TPS information. Questions at tps.org is the email that if you have questions, you can submit to. Someone is always responding to those questions as well. So again, we thank you and thank the team as well as board members. Continue to be TPS proud, and this concludes the presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Durant. And now I'd like to open it up for
I will turn
questions.
it back over to Board President, Mr. Vasquez, and Mr. Steckschulte.
Dr. Durant, thank you. I want to open it up for questions from the board members.
Mr. Vasquez,
Yes.
if I might go ahead. I just wanted to ask a couple of key questions and reiterate a couple of points. No one open the school year remotely, but I think it's something that, given the community spread and the status of the current pandemic, is reasonable and warranted. What I do want to ask specifically, though, is there are a lot of parents who are a little bit confused or flooded with information. I did see some comments that someone said they needed a PhD to understand this. So I just want to walk back through and ask a couple of questions that I think will help those parents. I'll save my editorial comments for the board comment section. So if I, as a parent, just watch this presentation and I have a student who I have not signed up for the virtual academy, my child will still begin the school year remotely. But if the district, the board and administration decide, given how numbers change and how the pandemic is being managed in our area of Ohio, that it is okay to go to yellow status, because we're in red status right now. If it is okay for us to go to the yellow light status, and I did not sign up for the virtual academy, I would then be expected to have my student show up at school on their designated A or B schedule. And that is why I need to have my A or B schedule designated before the school year starts, because at some point this could change. We would all welcome this changing and having the students back. We don't anticipate that will happen at this point before September 8th, though, and we will open remotely, regardless of whether you are in virtual academy or not. Virtual academy students will have their own teachers and their own principal and their own staff, whereas if we open remotely and you are an Ottawa River student, then you will have someone from the teacher from Ottawa River who is assigned to you be your remote teacher. So I just wanted to help people try to understand that. And if I have said that wrong, can someone please correct me?
No, you were right. You're accurate in your assessment that students will be placed on a class roster within their school, and they will be placed on either on an A day or B day if no input is provided by the family. Family might say, hey, I want my child on a B day, and then those are the things that will fluctuate within the A and B. But just as you stated, in essence of default, if there are no contact, the child will be placed on a class list on an A or B schedule based on their grade level. But those who are virtual will be assigned to an outside teacher who they will report to every day, and they will be committed to that for a semester. If students may be attending in a hybrid model, yellow or green, those who are virtual will still maintain their virtual remote status with the teacher that they're assigned to, just as you stated.
Thank you. I have more questions, but I will defer because I'm sure there's other board members with questions.
Other board members?
Yes, I have actually 4, so I can get through them, or you can just come back to me after the first one. What are efforts for our English second learning community in TPS, and also our deaf community families in TPS? What are ways that we're going to be able to have them sign up before August 8th and get information as it comes out?
Mr. Galt will take this one.
Yes, We will be translating information out in terms of ESL. We've been doing some of that. We'll continue to do that. We will be providing the needs of our students if they are ESL or deaf or a student with disability. They'll have the proper staff, whether they are doing this obviously remotely, which us being Red, or whether we are doing that as part of the virtual academy that they are enrolled
in. Other questions?
I'm not sure they addressed the hearing impaired. I'm sorry, did I hear that answer?
Yes.
And Stephanie, I want to just correct you. Hearing impaired is like a slur word to the deaf community. So just moving forward, we want to make sure we are welcoming all families.
And to that fact, those who are in the hybrid model, which is one of the reasons why we were looking at getting transparent shields for our staff, because lip reading is essential, particularly in oral language in the early childhood portion, as well as just naturally. Students as well as adults naturally just read lips. And so we found that it being very beneficial within the classroom that a mask that is provided to a staff is a transparent mask of a shield, so students as well as adults can continue to engage orally in a way that is efficient for them.
Thank you for that information.
Ms. Barnes, I just wanted to clarify too that any of our students with individual specific needs, including vision or hearing needs, will work very closely with their special education teacher and their related service providers to make sure that they are able to access the curriculum and have interpreters or materials that are needed for them.
Thank you, Dr. Allen, for that. My second question is, I know right now the recommendation is up in red. So if we go back to yellow or green, what is the time frame that we're giving our families to adjust for that?
Well, our goal will obviously will follow the safety precautions that are happening or what's happening in terms of the COVID spread. We want to inform parents, obviously give them time within that, but we also want to get students back to school as quickly as possible. So I think it's got to be a balance of ensuring that, and I hate to give you a time period, but we know that there needs to be a little bit of time for that adjustment. But just as we're starting in red, of course, none of us are happy about that, but we believe it's the right thing to do. We want to do to get students back physically in attendance as quickly as possible.
I have two more questions if somebody else want to go before I finish those two.
Skirkin, do you have questions? No? Yes?
No, I'm sorry. I was just giving her the thumbs up to keep going. I will wait.
What about Mrs. Varwick? Does she have questions?
Sorry, I'll defer to Ms. Barnes first, please. She's already asked some of the questions I had on my list, so we probably are in sync about some of these.
Okay, Ms. Barnes, please continue.
So my third question is, can we look into and see if JFS is still providing that program? If you are a food stamp recipient, that you can get internet for roughly, I think, $10. I think that will be beneficial to our families as we move through this process. The fourth one is, have there been any communication with our test providers here for COVID so we can test our teachers and our parents and families if they would want to? And could that be offered at the school sites or a site provided by TPS?
Harris has a question. I think she has an answer for your first question, and Ms. Cipriani can talk to you about the second one.
Yes, JFS is still providing services for other clients. They have a website that you can go to. They have phone numbers, and we will get that information posted on all of our sites. This morning, I received a flyer with all of that information, and they also have a Dropbox on their Monroe Street address where they're taking applications and updated information, and they will meet virtually or on phone calls with anyone who needs additional assistance. So they are still in full force.
And what we could do is have Ms. Mazur, our communication department, put that on our webpage for individuals who may need that. And since we have connections as well as contacts, we'll provide that for them as well.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think the second question Ms. Barnes had, Ms. Cipriani, was related to testing and whether we'd be utilizing our sites or have the ability to do that. If you want to address that.
Yes, our school-based health centers that are run by Health Partners of Western Ohio will be one option for both staff and students for testing. We will do that via a telehealth, and they would then provide a site for the staff to go to get the testing done, and for our students, and if we need to assist our students to get there. But yes, we will have testing. It's plentiful, and right now they have a really quick turnaround time, so we're pretty excited about that.
Thank you.
Okay, other board members with questions?
I can go. I wanted to piggyback on the testing question. And I'm glad to hear that we're going to help direct people to testing or make appointments with testing. And I think I heard this on, another district was doing it, or another organization, but is there an option to look into, I guess, getting a specific lab to handle all of our testing, or even a contract with a specific lab to handle all of our testing, to not only help ensure those turnarounds? And I understand that they're getting faster, but they're still not, like if 3 people in the family test at the same moment, those test results are coming dribbled back over sometimes over a few days. And so I don't know if that's an option to at least look at, employing a lab just, that we make sure all of our things go to, and it might help us also link to contact tracing and so forth. So then my next question is going to be about contact tracing. And I guess because we're starting out virtual, that this question is not as urgent, but certainly as we transition to a yellow, I would hope to see a well-developed plan about the extent to which we're involved with contact tracing, or we have dedicated contact tracers with the health department. So, you don't have to answer that question now. That's more of a referral. And then I think the question about, you are going to go ahead and cohort people A/B now rather than waiting until we're ready to go to green. I think I understood that. That we're going to do it, and obviously that can change between now and when we go to yellow. And we'll be able to be flexible there. I wanted to add to the slides that Mr. Murphy did about the community outreach and the teams, the building level and district level teams that are going to help make sure that we pull in all of our community partners. And I think this is really going to be a huge key. And I hope people hear that they aren't really out there on an island at this point. It may seem like it, especially with the full remote start, but as quickly as possible, we're going to deploy all available resources and partnerships. Many of those partners already have relationships with the families, so it will be folks that and you've already worked with in your buildings. And so I hope that helps. But I didn't see parents on either of those lists, and I wanted to beat Mrs. Varwig to that referral. So just because I got to go first, I think we need a parent representative on both the district level team, and make an effort to have a parent representative on every building level team. I think that's going to be important. My dog hasn't made a sound, not one sound, the whole time I was on mute, but now he is protecting me. So sorry about that. And then just one other thing right now, I got some feedback from the community when we deployed the school bus hotspots into the community. Not only, as, great, they're glad that we did the hotspots, but something I hadn't thought of was just sort of the the optic, the visual reminder, hey, the school bus is here, do some schoolwork kind of thing. And I like that sense of presence, right, that the school bus gives us in particular neighborhoods in the community or in, you know, just wherever. So I would like to also, you know, ask for consideration in using them, even if we are, you know, having enough hotspots to go around. It's just, it makes me feel a little closer to the families if they can look out their window or in their neighborhood and see that the school bus is there, you know, with hotspot if needed. So I thought that was interesting feedback, and I think that's really all I have for the moment. And I will yield. Thank you.
Good, thank you, Ms. Gerken. Mrs. Varwick, your questions.
Yeah, so I want to thank my fellow colleagues because they actually asked a lot of the questions that I had written down already. And Ms. Gerken, you beat me to the punch about the parents because you know I was going to go there. First, I want to apologize to the community at large for our technical issues at the beginning. I think, you know what, we've gotten better with this as we've progressed through the meeting. And do remember, this is a Board of Ed meeting as opposed to just a press conference. With that said, I applaud the effort by Dr. Durant and Ryan Stick-Schulte and the staff with this plan. It's a very detailed, it's a lot to consume for a lot of people. Some of the questions that I have, I guess I want to clarify something, and maybe Mr. Galt, you can chime in here, please. Can you speak to the devices for students, meaning the Chromebooks? I want to make sure people understand that it's not just one per household like it was in the spring, that this will be one-to-one.
Yeah, our goal is to go one-to-one. That being said, the devices will have a camera, they will have a microphone. We have a program called Single Sign-On, to where you will put in your 900 number and your password, and then you have access to all of our curriculum, both board adopted and supplemental curriculum. We have the ability to push out different curriculum to user groups. So we're pretty confident with that. We also have ordered hotspots to assist, and we're working locally with other providers to try to get a more wired system. So we are in better shape than obviously what we were in March, and we'll continue to work with our parents and students to that they're college and career ready.
Thank you. And then when we talk about testing for COVID, can we also speak to testing for staff? I think that's a very important part of it. And I know this is not part of the presentation today, but that is a concern. I'm sure many of our staff that are tuned in today would be curious about that.
Hi, Chris, this is Ann Cipriani. And yes, that we do have the testing available to our staff. Our school-based health centers, just for clarification, are not only to open to our students, but to any of our TPS staff, and not just teachers, but any staff throughout our district, okay?
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I think I just one more question for me is the communication piece out to our families. What can our families expect after this meeting is done today? What can they expect via email, via Facebook Live, all of those? Because if we could speak to that for a moment, please.
Just real quickly, and Ms. Mazur could come up and have some input too on this, but the plan will be put on our website. We will be communicating on a consistent basis on some of these items as well through video as well. I would suspect that you'll be hearing, now that we're back in as staff, you'll be hearing from your schools as well. Our goal is to make sure that we're communicating in a lot of different ways. We're also going to be able to provide some other additional assistance from our help desk in a sense regarding technology, as we kind of talked about with Galt as well. So there's various ways that we're doing. Ms. Mazur, do you have anything to add to that?
Just that we will be as flexible as the messaging needs to be. We understand that we could go down one road at 9 a.m. and by 3 a.m. or 3 p.m. we could be sharing a different message. So we will be absolutely monitoring and working closely with Dr. Durant and the administration to make sure that we are providing up-to-date information as quickly as possible and the message is current.
And just to add that, we're going to post and establish the timeline in essence of knowing from September 8th, working itself backward to today, all the things parent need to make sure are taken care of, whether it's virtual registration, whether it's when to come in for your Chromebook, as well as hotspot, as well as going through the procedure for that, as well as knowing where you're at in a class list for a hybrid model and all those other things. So, and that timeline in essence will help provide some guidance for them as they continue to move through and make plans for engaging with the school. But again, all that'll be on our webpage, tps.org, or you can ask any further question at questions@tps.org.
Perfect. And then one more question. I keep having questions pop up. So as we process this, if I'm a parent, do I know, or actually a staff person then, will the staff have a camera in there? Let's say they were going to go to, well, whether it's remote or the hybrid model, will they have a camera in their classroom, or are they utilizing their laptops with the camera connected to it? Just so I'm clear on that.
Our technology department bought devices for our staff members. I believe I know they all have cameras, microphones, etc. They are built in. I know that some buildings do have some external, but we ordered devices back in late March, early April for our staff, as well as students, knowing that there was the possibility that we could be remote this fall.
Thank you, because I was just concerned about, I know that's probably included in the cost. So I wanted the community to know that that is covered under the cost associated with going into the remote. Excuse me.
Okay. Other questions before I go on?
Sure. Can I wrap up my list then?
Oh, yes. I'm sorry, Ms. Eichenberg, go ahead.
That's okay. Okay. Couple of things I wanted to clarify. With it was briefly covered, but I'm not sure that it would have been fully understood in the brief time allotted. So many families got one Chromebook per family. We've established that we are moving far closer to one-to-one, where each student will have their own Chromebook. So my 8th grader and, she's a high schooler now, my freshman and my 7th grader will each have their own Chromebook. I also heard that there will be an orientation on how to use those. And I just wanted to get some clarity for our families on what would that orientation look like? When would it occur? Would it occur at their home school? If they're part of the virtual academy, where would it occur? And I know we may be working out some of those details still, but could we give people sort of a general timeline? We'll tell you where that will occur by August, whatever. And we expect that to occur the last week in August, first week in September, something like that. And here's where we expect it to be. If we can't get that specific now, I'd still like to hear kind of what we're thinking or what we already know.
Okay, I can give you an update on that. Our goal is to meet with our families and parents August 24th up through September the 4th. This is part of the reason why we're asking you to do the delay of student attendance. In those meetings, we will be ensuring that we have all proper forms filled out for them to receive virtual instruction. They will be receiving their devices. In the event they need a hotspot, we will help them get connected to that. We will ensure that they have all of their passwords, and they will have an opportunity to meet their educator as we're starting remote. Now, I see those appointments starting to get scheduled beginning around August the 7th as our staff come back into our buildings, and they'll be doing that at their respective buildings. As for the virtual academy, we have a couple of plans that we are trying to finalize. That could be done in some central locations, or it could be done in a building level. But we will be communicating those out as we close out July and go into early August.
Okay, thank you. Next, I wanted to ask a question about students who attend our magnet schools, especially if they live in a household with someone who's immunocompromised and their parents have decided that the best thing for them is to transition to a virtual, the virtual academy for this semester, potentially for this year, if this is still an issue in 6 months. Are those students, if I say was an ANSAT student last year, but for health reasons, my family has decided I need to be a part of the virtual academy this semester, and I wish to go back to ANSAT in January or next August as the school year reopens, and one hopes that we are far, far beyond this by next year. Will I be allowed to do that?
Well, as you know, safety is a top priority for us here at Toledo Public Schools. Students and parents that are making decisions based on safety should not have to give up their seat at the school that they are attending. So parents can be rest assured that if I'm in the virtual academy, you will not be dropped from your school that you're attending now.
Right, so I won't be blocked from returning to that school, but my virtual academy education will look different from what a remote red light learning situation looks like at that magnet school, correct?
That is correct, yes. You would be in a virtual setting in our virtual school. You will be with a virtual teacher that will be different than you're accustomed to at your magnet school. In the event that at the end of December that you feel that it's safe to return back to your magnet school, we will welcome you back with open arms and glad that you're in physical attendance, assuming the district.
Okay, great. And then I think my next question is also for you, Mr. Galt. I have a gifted student, but I would like them to be in virtual school. Will they be serviced in the virtual school?
I feel pretty confident with that. That would be based on enrollment, but I'm seeing the numbers there. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say, yes, we will be able to accommodate gifted in our virtual academy. As I said, we've had 3,200 signed up as recently as this morning. So yes, there would be gifted services available.
Okay, so now I'm going to throw you a curveball. If I signed up for the virtual academy, but based on what I have learned today, I think that maybe what I really want is just to be registered at my home school, and I am going to rely on the board and the administration to decide when my student can come back as a hybrid AB schedule student on the yellow light, and I'm comfortable with that. Can I withdraw that registration if I would like to, based on the information I have today?
Well, thank you for throwing that curveball, because we've talked a lot about getting into the virtual school, and we did not talk about parents that have signed up if they want to attend back. The answer to that is yes. You can enroll in a virtual school up until August the 8th. In the event that you decide that you do not want to continue in that, you can let us know that as well, and we will take you out of that. But our staff will be contacting those parents that want to enroll beginning August 1st. And you have the ability, obviously, to go back until we begin September the 8th. But once you are in the virtual school, you are committed for the semester, as we will be staffing accordingly.
Great. So the next question I have is, if I am a parent who wants to cry right now because I'm trying to figure out what it's going to be like for my third grader to learn on a Chromebook at home full time, which was frankly tough in the spring. Can you give me an overview of what we believe as a district will look different on the remote schedule, the red light schedule? I'm a standard third grader. I go to Beverly Elementary, and now I know that I have to open remote and have an all virtual schedule, even though I didn't sign up for the virtual academy. How will this fall look very different from spring?
Well, it'll look different because the district has taken on the responsibility of addressing the digital divide. In the spring, not everybody had technology in the homes. Not everybody had one-to-one service. And to be candid, not all of our staff were trained appropriately to provide online instruction. Due to us delaying school to September the 8th, it allows us to take care of our training, distribute devices, and there will be scheduled times in terms of where you will attend daily, in terms of you will see your peers, even though it may be through the looks of Google Classroom or Google Meets, but you'll have the ability to see your peers and interact with your teacher on a daily up to 4 hours of instruction.
I could go on. I'm going to ask one last question though, because it's a very specific question that I had been asked about by a parent. My student is an 8th grader, an incoming 8th grader who was eligible for Super ESO. They came out of the gifted program and were eligible to be able to do algebra and English at the high school and the rest of their schooling back with their 8th grade peers. How will that be impacted by this?
Hey, another good question. If students are being subject accelerated and on a written acceleration plan, which sounds like the student that you are describing to me, they will have the ability to take courses at their high school, just as if they would in terms of with an ESO. Now, of course, under a red light, that will be done remote, but they'll be assigned to a high school class, just like they would be if COVID wasn't impacting our operations.
Okay, thank you. I will cut myself off now and assume that if there are other questions that I didn't get answered, we will publish those.
All right, are there any other questions from board members before I start mine?
I think it's more of a consideration. You know, we're all watching districts across the country and seeing what they're doing. And one of the biggest impacts is, of course, childcare. I don't remember if it was Georgia or not, but one of the districts offered teachers to bring their school-age children in the classroom while they taught virtually to accommodate for childcare. And I think this is something we should consider or look at and see if that is something teachers would take a part of, since we are all in this together.
I'm assuming somebody got that comment.
Yes, we got it, and we have talked considerably about that, and we will continue to consider it.
All right, thank you. Any other questions, comments before I make mine? All right, I'm gonna not make, well, first of all, maybe some of you can help me again say, where are people able to see this right now? Is my first question. Can somebody help me with that? Where can they view this meeting?
It's on our Facebook Live page. And many people are streaming it from one of the news stations live from their own Facebook pages, I believe.
Okay.
Yes,
All right,
I'm hearing it right now,
Correct.
actually.
We were just double checking and that is correct.
Okay, thank you. Because I want to make sure that everyone understands that we did not block, we did not bar anybody from seeing this meeting. As a matter of fact, we were hoping that it would be so widespread that it was the best way to get it out. It didn't work that way, and I apologize for that. But I want to make sure that everyone knows that we had our best intentions. With that, I'm going to make comments, and I'm not going to wait until the rather than have questions. I'm going to make just a couple comments and not wait to the board comment section, because I have a feeling that some people may drop off after they think we've concluded this. And here are my comments. And that is that there have been many discussions, and a couple of the board members have thanked our administration, and I want to thank them too. And I want to thank the entire board, because there have been many discussions. This was hard. Going to red was a hard decision to make. The discussions that the board and the staff had were all heartfelt discussions. They were difficult. They took a lot of time. But I also want to say that in every discussion, it was the students' health, the health of their family, the health of our staff that was at the center of every discussion. Because we don't have control of the situation or the environment out there, as far as the medical and the virus, it makes us feel helpless at times, but we understand that we are in a position to have to make those decisions, and we have done so. Some are going to like it, some are not going to like it. I'm already getting messages accordingly. Okay. But I did want to tell you also that the board committees and our committees consist of policy, athletics and CPR, there'll be community PR, family engagement, curriculum, human resources, and finance have all addressed in their committees this issue. So it isn't just a staff issue. We have staff liaisons in all of our committees, and the board members, there are at least 2 board members on every one of those committees that I just mentioned. And we have had ongoing discussions even before school ended last school year and throughout the summer. There are many things that trouble us in making the decision to open in red. And all the board members and all of our staff and all of our staff leadership have really had to do some soul searching in going in this direction. So having said that, I just want to thank everybody, and we will have a chance to reevaluate our situation as we go along, and we will do that. One of the issues I have for myself, and I'm not asking the question, I'm making a comment, and the issues that have been brought up from other board members is the issue of equity. I think that having to go to a remote learning situation really makes the issue of equity difficult. And I want to go a little bit further down. It's difficult for everyone. Our special needs, our Black and brown students who don't have the same structure or family structure for whatever reasons in their homes. It's going to be a difficult situation. And I myself have asked the administration to make sure that we go above and beyond and start getting creative and finding ways to address those issues, because not to address them is not acceptable. It's just not acceptable. There is no such thing as we can't do that. We're going to need to find a way to do that. So with that, though, I'd just like to commend everyone. This is so difficult. All of this is so complicated. And we will be adjusting. Will it be perfect? No. As you can see, we didn't even have a perfect meeting. I was hoping this meeting would go perfect and we wouldn't have all the IT problems that we had. So we're going to run into some things. And I also want to to address our labor unions and our staff. Any staff who have questions and concerns, take them to your labor leaders. I think that's the best way to handle it. If there are concerns regarding some of the details, go to the administration. But also, I want the labor leaders to help us, to really help us as we implement the best plan for our students and our families. And we're going to need it. We're going to need the help. We're going to need the help from our parents. We're going to need help from the community. We're going to need the help from our labor leaders. We're going to need help from our staff and everyone. So I just want to do that. And with that, to be honest with you, we were supposed to go to organizational input, but since they could not get on, and those organizations were Parent Congress, TAP, TFT, and AFSCME, we're going to skip that. Again, I have to offer my apologies to those organizations. We could not do that. So that does bring us to comments by the board. So any comments?
Mr. Vasquez?
Yes, go ahead.
I just want to take a moment. You know, initially when we announced that we thought we could head back into a hybrid schedule, it was a number of weeks ago. And I want to point out that in Lucas County, July 1st, there were 2,628 people who had so far been diagnosed with COVID. As of yesterday, there were 4,407. That's a lot. If you haven't done the math, that's a 40% increase in 1 month. And for all the folks who are really frustrated that we cannot go back to school in person, I ask that you do a few things, and they are simple. They are not easy and they are not fun, but I'm going to ask that you actually do these things, which is to follow orders about not gathering in large groups. From the block party down the street, to the pool party, to the yard party, these things are the things that are helping to spread this virus. Our students have higher risk levels than many other students who may have the privilege of being in a different school. And it's not fair when we see families going around cavalierly acting like this is not a big deal, when we know that we have a lot of students who have a physical disability that puts them at risk. And I would ask the community to start to think about our children a little bit more. I want the community to know that, you know, we can look around at any country in the world. No one has sent students back to school with full-blown community spread like we have right now. And it just isn't happening because it's a really, really bad idea. And I know that there are schools that intend to do that are not Toledo Public Schools. Very first thing in August, and I wish them luck. But I do think that those schools are going to be caught in a continuous cycle of opening and closing and opening and closing. I don't want to do that to our parents, and that was a part of my decision making. I am not happy at all that we have to suspend athletics. In fact, it makes me want to cry. For my child who was excited to play her first high school sport, this is heartbreaking. I don't like it. And the only way we're going to get past this is if we can stop gathering in large numbers, if we can wear our masks and we can actually start to lower the numbers of this virus. This has easy steps we can all take, and yet we like to make exceptions. Just this once, I'm going to do that. Just this once, I will be here. Just this once. Every just this once continues the spread of this virus. Please, if you're saying to yourself, just this once, I'm going to let the kids go to an overnight. You know, there has been early evidence that small children aren't that impacted, and that's great. But we don't service majority small children. Students 10 and up represent the vast majority of our students, and they do spread this virus just as efficiently as adults. And in fact, the data we see coming out of Florida and Texas indicate that maybe even your small children could be at risk. So I know this is difficult. I don't like this. I don't like having my students in my house during the day. It's hard because I have a job to do too. I understand it. I did not like making this decision. It was really hard for me to support this decision, except when I look at the fact that we could be putting our students and staff's lives at risk by not being careful, or their future, because maybe they'll be okay. Maybe they'll just get hospitalized. Great. You know, there's a lot of people who are having very, very, very extensive symptoms coming out of this. So even though they had the virus, they haven't fully recovered. That's something we just don't know enough about. I am not willing to put your student through that. So I think it's important that people understand we did not blindly just say, okay, you know what, this is the easiest thing. It's not an easy thing. This is actually more difficult. It would be easiest just to throw open our doors 5 days a week, but I don't want to take on the responsibility of having subjected my students or my staff to being sick and hurt and causing potential death.
Thank you. Mrs. Varwood, comments?
I'll keep mine brief because everything that Ms. Eichenberg just talked about, I agree with. You know what, at the end of the day, for me, I look at the staff as my family and I look at our students as my children. And I cannot sit here and justify any proceeding any differently than what we're doing right now, going into the remote learning mode, because I want to keep them safe. And that's really what it comes down to. I would not put my family in that situation, and I'm not going to put yours either. This is an all hands on deck. And Mr. Vasquez, you're right. We truly need the community to help us in this endeavor. So at the end of the day, I'm going to be supporting this. Thank you.
Mrs. Gherkin.
Thank you. I would echo that, it's a very difficult decision. Probably the hardest decision this body of 5 elected officials are being faced in our tenure. In fact, I would challenge you, Mr. Vasquez. You often remind me of the time back in the day when you had to make some very, very tough decisions with regard to budget and cutting sports and cutting transportation. And you remind us that how that really hurt you. And even when you speak about it now, we can tell how hard it was for you to have to make those kinds of decisions during our Great Recession. But I would say this might be the topper, because we're making a decision on so many different levels about the livelihoods of our families. So I, commend the administration for everything that they've done to bring this plan to us. I apologize for my expression of frustration at the beginning of the meeting. I will say that I really thought we would be able to pull it off a little more smoothly at 4 months into the virtual world. So I apologize for that. I would like to just touch again on that part of what I think Mr. Murphy and his team's trying to do with the whole child, the piece about we're calling on the community not only to do the right thing to help curb the spread of the virus, but for the community to step up and help us to wrap services around the families. I fantasize about some sort of a one-stop shop that's community-based. I'm not asking our administration to take on yet another large undertaking, but something where families, neighborhood by neighborhood, can help to organize their own, maybe small hubs or pods for 3 or 4 families to share the burden of overseeing, a couple of kids, 3, 4 kids at a time, so that they can go to work. If there's a community organization or agency that would want to take something like that on and do some research to help families really put together whatever it is that they're going to need to get through this, then I would rush in to support those efforts with whatever resources we have as a district, knowing that we really don't have, we really can't go and take on childcare. And I had a mom saying, "What am I going to do? Literally, what am I going to do? How can I go to work? I can't oversee my kids' education 5 days a week. I really can't." And at the same time, recognizing that there are limitations to what we can do as a district. So I'm calling on the community to continue to step up, and on Mr. Murphy and his team to continue to reach out and make those connections happen the best we can. And again, thank everyone for being here today to help us through what is our board meeting. We are technically here to talk to each other and learn from our administration and hear recommendations from our administration. These presentations were designed to help the board make their decision, and it's a little bit different than a presentation that was designed to push out concise, accessible information to the public. That will follow once we make our final decisions. It sounds like in a few moments. And I would encourage our communications department to continue to work on that, pushing out of communications and outreach in every way that we can. I assume the communication department will take a look at the stories that are already being posted, because I see an inaccuracy in at least one of them. So we might not, because we are live and because we're talking to each other and it's being picked up moment to moment based on our discussion, there's also the risk that things are getting pushed out while they're literally in the middle of being developed by us. And there's a difference between observing the work of public officials together, doing their work, discussing and going back and forth and round, and pushing out a fully baked communication based on our decisions. So the notion of a public meeting is to watch us do our work, right? This is a public meeting where we're being watched doing our work. And it may not be, it may be clear as mud by the time we're done talking here today, but we are hoping to, pick up the pieces and get the most clear and concise message out to the public as we can as we're finished, including our direct communication team monitoring what might already be out there and helping our media partners get the most accurate and updated information, which brings me to the final point that yes, it is a moving target. And I've heard those comments from day one, right? All the way up to the moments that we're talking about right now. It is a moving target. We really cannot or could not have been any more permanent in our decision than we are at this moment. And we are going to continue to have to make adjustments according to the data that's in front of us. So as frustrating as ambiguity is, it's really all we've got right now. And I would ask for the community's grace in allowing us, trusting us to do the very best we can in whatever moment is in front of us. And then, as Ms. Mazur said, the communication will be updated as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Gherkin. Ms. Barnes, your comments.
So I just want to speak on a little bit about the attack on public education. We see the impact and the importance of public education in our district and across the country. We know that this is frustrating. As a mother of TPS students, I can only imagine what days like to come to make sure you find someone to watch them when you're working, when you're taking care of your parents or your loved ones. I have heard everything, and I do understand that this is very frustrating. This is very scary. How it did not impact my decision to save lives. And that's how I looked at it. So it just wasn't hard for me to choose, because I don't want to come to any family in our TPS family and say, I'm sorry, we got it wrong. With your loved ones being on a ventilator, being sick or deaf. So this wasn't a hard decision for me to choose. However, what I want to ask of our TPS family is to make sure that we're using our voices so that the administration, whether it's state, local, or federal, knows that how important education is, and we can't keep taking cuts, and we can't keep getting bullied, and we're doing the we can what we have, and to know that we have to come together and stick together for our schools. And I will also echo some of the comments of our leaders in Senate and House, and excuse my language, but wear the damn mask. If you want us to go back to school, and if you want your kids to get that one-on-one education that we are trying to make sure is high quality education, just simply wear your mask and wash your hands. Once again, no one planned for this. No one expected this, and it's changing. And we need to be honest with how we move forward. And together we can do that, but we need to wear a mask, and we need to social distance, and we need to wash our hands. And hopefully moving forward, we can have a lot of community support to get through this semester. Or thank you.
Thank you. With going into this section of the agenda and the board comments, I'd like to introduce a resolution by the board, for the board. And I'm going to read the resolution. And the resolution authorizing the board president, superintendent, treasurer, and deputy superintendent to endorse the Toledo Public Schools responsible reopening plan to start the 2020-21 school year. Whereas on July 30th, the Toledo Public Schools Board of Education, the board, were presented the 2020-2021 responsible opening plan by the administration. Now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Education of the Toledo City School District, Lucas County, Ohio, that Section 1, the board endorses the plan as presented, and the administration has the board support to move forward with planning for the 2020-2021 school year. Section 2, the board encourages the administration to be flexible, consult with the Lucas County Health Department, and have the ability to adjust the plan as needed. Section 3, the board hereby finds and determines that all formal actions related to the adoption of this resolution were taken in open meetings of the board, and that all deliberations of this board and of its committees which resulted in formal action were taken in meetings open to the public and in full compliance with applicable law. Section 4, this resolution shall be in full force and effect from and immediately after its adoption. Could I have a motion?
So moved.
Been
Second.
moved by Mrs. Barnes. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Gherkin. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. Treasurer, please call the roll.
Ms. Barnes,
Yes.
Mrs. Eichenberg,
Yes.
Mrs. Gherkin,
Yes.
Mrs. Barwig,
Yes.
Mr. Vasquez.
Yes. One last question. Is this presentation that we just heard going to be on the website then?
Yes, it will be on the website.
How soon do you think we can get it up there?
It will be posted yet this evening.
All right, thank you. Thank you on that, and thank you everybody. It was a lot of work. The next part of the agenda is section 7, and that is the consent agenda. So I'm going to read through the items, and the board members may request that something be pulled so that there can be further discussion if they need to. Item 701 through 705 are the Human Resources Staff Development and Training Committee items. Chair is Polly Taylor Gherkin and co-chair is Stephanie Eichenberg. The items 706 through 710 are the Finance and Business Operations Committee. Chair Bob Vasquez and co-chair Stephanie Eichenberg. Item 7.11 and 7.12 are the Community and Public Relations Committee, and the chair is Stephanie Eichenberg and co-chair Chris Varwig. Item 7.13 through 7.16 are Board Curriculum, Instruction, and Academic Excellence Committee, and the chair is Polly Taylor Gherkin and the co-chair is Chris Varwig. Items 7.17-7.20 are the Policy Committee, and the chair is Sheena Barnes, and the co-chair is Bob Vasquez. Item 7.21 is Athletics and Student Activities Committee. No action required this month. The chair is Chris Varwig, and the co-chair is Stephanie Eichenberg. Item 7.22, Family and Community Engagement Committee. There are no action items there. The chair is Bob Vasquez, and the co-chair is Chris Varwig. Items 7.23 and 7.24 are the approval of the board meeting minutes. Could I have a motion to approve the consent agenda items?
So moved.
It's been moved by Ms. Barnes. Is there a second?
Nope. That
No?
was Chris,
Was that Chris? I'm sorry.
but I'll second it though.
All right, moved by Ms. Varway and seconded by Ms. Barnes. Any discussion? All right, hearing none. Treasurer, please call the roll.
Ms. Barnes,
Yes.
Mrs. Eichenberg,
Yes.
Mrs. Gherkin,
Yes.
Mrs. Varwig,
Yes.
Mr. Vasquez.
Yes. Okay, that takes us to section 8. And this part of the agenda contains our reports and minutes from this month's meetings. And the meetings are here for your information and reference. There's no action required. Section 9 is the renewal of institutional membership resolution. I need a motion to approve section 9.01.
So moved.
Seconded.
Okay, it's been moved by Polly Taylor Gherkin and seconded by Sheena Barnes. Any discussion?
Seconded by Stephanie.
Stephanie,
Thank you, Sheena.
I'm just getting used to your voices. I'm looking at my sheet and not at your face. I apologize. Treasurer, you please call the roll.
Ms. Barnes,
Yes.
Mrs. Eichenberg,
Yes.
Mrs. Gherkin,
Yes.
Mrs. Varwig,
Abstain.
Mr. Vasquez. Bob, you're on mute.
Can you get, yes. No, I abstain. I abstain. Did you get that?
Yes, I got that.
All right. Okay, next is the section 9.02, which is the July 30th, 2020 instructional section. Can I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been seconded. Any discussion?
I would like to just point out that there's a list of graduates in that section. And we're always proud to continue to add to the list of TPS proud graduates. And if Mr. Galt is still on the call, do you mind mentioning how the extended graduation opportunities have been ticking up our graduation rates overall? I think it's worth noting.
Yeah, even though the data has not been released and is still gathering it, and it's still not been completed by the Ohio Department of Education, we are seeing a record year from this last year in terms of graduation percentage. I think that's in part to the various programs that we're putting in place, not only in person, but also around digital in terms of Apex. So as we, and we will not see these results until the 2021-2022 school year, but we're very encouraged and look like we're going to have a record year in terms of our graduation percentage.
And I think it's always really nice to see graduates completing requirements, even if they weren't able to do it at the moment that their class did it, because of our additional opportunities for credit recovery and getting those diplomas eventually. So congratulations to all of those additional graduates.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Hearing none, Treasurer, please call the roll.
Ms. Barnes,
Yes.
Mrs. Eichenberg,
Yes.
Mrs. Gherkin,
Yes.
Mrs. Varwig,
Abstain.
Mr. Vasquez.
Yes. Thank you. 9.03 is an August special board meeting date discussion. Can we, as board members, try to come up with some dates for a special board meeting in August, please? There were some that were previously put out there, and I don't know if that's where you want to start or.
What was the suggested date that was last put out there? Do we-
Mr. Sexualty, do you have information in hand?
I do not have them in.
I believe it was August 13th. And Mr. Vasquez, you weren't available until 5 p.m.
Correct.
If it is the team amenable to a meeting in the evening then on August 13th. And I think the point there is that we have other items related to job duties and memorandums of understanding that still need to be ironed out as we change to our different environments this year. So that's the reason for the special board meeting, correct? Is that right?
I think it was so that if there's anything that requires board action between now and our regularly scheduled meeting, that we don't have to stretch things out and there's no holding anything up. And if there are any additional updates that we need to discuss along the way, that we have something on our calendars. And if nothing happens that really requires us together, we can cancel the meeting. And on the 13th, I can do a 5 p.m. meeting if that is good with everyone else.
Do we want to do 5:30? Because I see someone has to work until 5 to get them time to get situated.
5:30 works for me.
Also for me.
Okay, it looks like it is Mr. Sexualty. And as we get closer, because it is a special board meeting, as we get closer, we'll then publish the specific reason, because we have to have specifics in the announcement when we do a special board meeting.
Thank you.
Correct.
So we got August 13th at 5:30, and that's kind of a placeholder. And then when we get closer, and we'll be able to define what it is exactly we're going to be covering in that meeting. Okay. All right, so the section 10 are walk-ins. Are there any walk-ins?
There are no walk-ins this evening.
All right, thank you. Section 11 is the early childhood education action items. And I don't think there are any, but I'm gonna check with Chair Polly Taylor Gherkin before I say that.
We don't have any action items, and I can assure you Dr. Allen is continuing to work on the reopening plan. And actually, Dr. Allen, did you want to say anything about the summer learning that took place with early childhood, just while we have you on the hook?
Sure. We had an opportunity to use some of the CARES Act money that was given to us through Head Start to put together a pilot program this summer for virtual learning for preschool. As you know, preschool and virtual learning are not very often spoken in the same sentence, so we needed to figure out how to do it. We've had about 80 families enrolled with their students, and we're having a great opportunity to work out the kinks and learn how best to do this. So I guess I would like to publicly thank our team, our curriculum team and our early childhood director for really working hard to figure out what this should look like so that now that we're faced with having to do it for all of our students in the fall, we have already ironed out some of the wrinkles.
Thank you. I think that was a great opportunity this summer. Thank you.
All right, thank you. That takes us to section 12 and 13, which are the early childhood reports. The committee did not meet this month, so I think we can go ahead and go to the next section. That would be section 14, which is executive session. And I'm requesting or moving that we go into executive session for preparing for conducting or reviewing negotiations or bargaining sessions with public employees concerning their compensation or other terms and conditions of their employment. And I have another reason. The other reason being that we want to conference with an attorney to discuss pending or imminent legal action. May I have a motion, please?
So moved, Varwig.
Seconded, Eichenberg.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, Treasurer, please call the roll.
Ms. Barnes,
Yes.
Mrs. Eichenberg,
Yes.
Mrs. Gherkin,
Yes.
Mrs. Barwig,
Yes.
Mr. Vasquez.
Yes. And before we go, Mr. Steckschulte, can you please send me the link for the executive session again? I have it buried someplace in one of my emails, and I don't know if anybody else has that problem, but.
It was Ms. Gretchen's just sent it to you all.
Okay. All right.
Real quick, I'm sorry. For those who haven't us before, can you explain they can stay on until we get back, or how do you want that to work? Because we have a lot of folks who never actually watched us do this. So.
Sure. Going in executive session means that the board is going to go in to discuss the items that I talked about. We will come back to out of executive session into our regular session, especially to close out the meeting. If you want to stay on, you can obviously stay on, and if you don't, I mean, obviously that's your choice. So, all right. Thank you.
Thank you.